So your fundraising is taking off, and you're thinking about going national. That's fantastic. But with bigger ambitions come bigger compliance headaches. In this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how you can manage charitable registration when you're ready to launch a national campaign.
Welcome! You're watching a resource from the Multi-State Fundraising Compliance series. Our whole goal here is to take these really complex fundraising rules and make them practical for nonprofit leaders just like you. And this guide comes to you from the team over at Ironwood Registrations.
Okay, so here's what we've got on the agenda today. First, we're going to dive into what we call the national fundraising paradox. It's a real head-scratcher for a lot of folks. Then, I'll walk you through a super clear 5-step compliance plan. After that, we'll cover the big mistakes you really want to avoid. And we'll wrap up by talking about how to shift your mindset from just reacting to being truly strategic.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the National Fundraising Paradox. You know, this is really where the rubber meets the road for so many growing organizations. You know that feeling, right? It's one of the most exciting times for a growing nonprofit. You're finally launching digital ads nationwide. You've got amazing peer-to-peer campaigns going. You're tapping into huge movements like Giving Tuesday. I mean, the energy is just electric. The potential for what you can achieve feels absolutely limitless.
But hang on. In the middle of all that excitement, there is one single question that, if you don't ask it early enough, can bring everything to a screeching halt. And that question is, are we actually registered to fundraise in all the states we're about to reach?
And that right there, that's the paradox. Your fundraising campaign lives online. It's borderless. It could reach anyone, anywhere. But the laws for charitable registration? Nope. They are strictly state by state. So the second you get that national visibility, boom, you suddenly have national compliance exposure.
So here's the bottom line, and it's so important. You have to plan for compliance before you launch, not after the money starts coming in. Being proactive about this stuff doesn't just protect your campaign's momentum, it protects the stability of your entire organization.
Okay, so that's the challenge. Let's talk about the solution. Section 2 is all about giving you a clear, actionable plan to get this right from the start.
Think of this as your roadmap. It's just 5 steps. First, we'll identify your target states. Second, review your current status. Third, evaluate your online impact. Fourth, build out your timelines. And fifth, align your teams. Simple, right? Let's break down each one.
Okay, step 1 is all about intent. Basically, where are you actively trying to raise money? Are you running digital ads aimed at people in California? Are you sending out email blasts to your list in Florida? Maybe you're applying for a grant that's specific to Texas. Those are your targeted states, and you got to know that list first.
Step 2 is taking a good, hard look at where you are right now. In which states are you already registered? And are all those renewals up to date? You wouldn't believe how often an organization finds out a registration has lapsed at the worst possible moment. You really have to check on this stuff before you even think about expanding.
All right, step 3, let's talk about the online world. Because even if you aren't actively targeting a state, your online presence creates exposure. That Donate Now button on your website that anyone in the country can click, a peer-to-peer campaign that suddenly goes viral, an influencer who gives you a shout-out, all of those things can trigger registration requirements in states you weren't even thinking about. Now, this next one is so important. Step 4 is about building a realistic timeline. You can't just send in the paperwork on Monday and launch your campaign on Tuesday. That's not how government works, right? Some states might approve you in a few weeks. Others, well, they can take months. Your launch date has to be planned around whichever state on your list is going to be the slowest.
And finally, step 5, which might be the most important one for internal harmony. Get your teams talking to each other. Your development folks know the fundraising goals. Your finance folks know the compliance reality. When those two teams are actually in sync, you completely avoid those awful last-minute uh-oh moments.
Okay, so we've got a plan. Now let's flip it around and talk about what not to do. Section 3 is all about the common mistakes that can turn a tiny oversight into a massive risk.
Mistake number 1, and it's the big one, is just jumping in head first. You know, that launch now, ask for forgiveness later approach? Yeah, that is the single fastest way to get yourself into hot water with state regulators.
Mistake number 2 is a super common misunderstanding about the internet. Just because your donate button is accessible to everyone online, that doesn't make it a free-for-all. When you're actively asking for donations online, you're creating very real legal obligations.
Okay, mistake number 3 is playing defense instead of offense. Please, do not wait until a huge grant maker asks to see your proof of registration before you realize you don't have it, because by that point, you can pretty much kiss that funding opportunity goodbye.
Peer-to-peer campaigns. They're amazing for getting people involved, but they can be a compliance nightmare. Think about it. Every single one of your fundraisers is basically soliciting on your behalf, and you are responsible for that. You have to review this stuff carefully.
And that brings us to the last big mistake. And it's really all about mindset. It's treating compliance like some boring administrative task you clean up after the campaign is over. But as we've been talking about, it's not. It is a core foundational piece of your campaign strategy.
You know, that leads us perfectly into our final section here. Let's lift this up from just a checklist of things to do and talk about it as a core strategic principle for your organization. When it comes down to it, you really have a choice between two paths. You can be reactive, expand first, and then just hope you can clean up the mess later, or you can be proactive, align your compliance and fundraising from the very beginning. The path you choose is really what determines whether your growth is actually sustainable.
So if you take one thing away from this, let it be this. Compliance is not a barrier to your growth. It's the very foundation that makes sustainable growth possible. Having that strong compliance infrastructure in place is what lets you take your mission national and do it with confidence.
So I'll leave you with this question. Right now, is your compliance strategy an asset or is it a liability? If you'd like more guides and resources to help you build that solid foundation, please visit ironwoodregistrations.com. Thanks so much for your time.